stage, on stage with Jim and Tom. 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 Tom and Jim.
Tonight, we welcome the musical collective known as Free Peoples to the stage of the Phoenix Theater. Hailing from the Bay Area, they describe themselves as intergalactic afro-cowboy world beat and have been at it for almost 20 years. Tonight, we'll chat with the members of this band for a bit, and later they will play us some of their music from an upcoming release. Please welcome to the program, Free Peoples.
Free Peoples.
Hello. Hi. That's how the music sounds.
Yeah, pretty much.
That was an a cappella version of one of the songs you'll be playing here tonight. It said intergalactic afro-cowboy world beat, but others have called it Americana, bluegrass, jazz hybrid, just so people understand what we're talking about.
A bit of funk mixed in.
A little bit of funk mixed in. You play a collection of songs tonight, all from the new album. Is that correct?
Yes.
Correct.
Do we have a title for this new album, and is there a theme or anything overarching in terms of content on this album?
We do not have a working theme. I think we possibly were going to use.
What was the name of that album?
The Choice. We were going to use The Choice.
The Choice.
And that was going to be the title song that we're going to play later.
Let's talk about The Choice, because that song obviously means a lot to you guys. It's thinking about having it be the title track.
Mm-hmm.
Tim wrote this song, is that correct?
Correct.
Yeah, let's talk about that.
Well, I'd seen this lecture on TED Talks by this gal named Jill Bolte Taylor. She's a neuroanatomist at Harvard. And her whole deal with going into neuroanatomy was to try to solve her brother's schizophrenia, essentially. And so she talked about this, and then she spent years and years and years studying and trying to figure it out, the impossible. And then one day, 25 or so years after being a neuroanatomist, she has a stroke while she's in the shower. And she tells about her stroke, and the stroke was hitting her left brain, which is her analytical brain, who she's been trying to solve problems all these years. And so when the left brain went out, all of a sudden that drop of water that hit her face, she was just kind of blown away. Like it was the best drop of water that she had ever felt hitting her face in the first time ever. She thought, she's on acid. She's having an acid trip. And then she kind of snapped out of it. Oh my God, I'm having a stroke. And then she fell down, and then for however long it took her to crawl from the shower, out of the shower to the phone, she had these realizations where her left brain would just completely knock out, because that's the side that the stroke was on. And her right brain, this whole kind of euphoric, artsy feeling brain, would just come back, and she would just feel this amazing feeling of the shower and the journey. And then, of course, oh shit, I'm having a stroke again. So she would continue on until she finally called 911, and then she lived through rehab to tell about it, and then she wrote a book about it. And so when I heard that lecture, it was just like, and the whole end of the lecture was, hey, we have a choice between our right brain and our left brain. You guys decide what it is. If we want to continue to be analytical about our choices, or we want to really look into the right brain kind of creative side. And so then that song kind of came out of that, listening to that lecture, and it's about that we have this choice to make. We can make the analytical choice, or we have this heartfelt kind of choice that we can make. And that's kind of where that came from.
And I think it's a good segue about the longevity of this band. You two are the founding members that remain in this band. Is that correct?
Correct.
And the names are, just so people know?
I'm known as Mike D.
And Tim Sawyer.
Okay. And so, it's one of those things where you had to make a choice over the last however many years, 17 years you've been at it now?
Almost 20.
Almost 20.
Yeah.
That you have to make a choice to keep a project like this going.
Right.
It doesn't just happen on its own.
Yeah, I consider it an obligation to humanity. If you've been given a gift to be an artist, then it's your obligation to do it. And so I maybe not so hard to say give up. I suppose if I was obsessed with the journey, then I would give up. But I have never been obsessed or possessed by it. It's just been a constant explosion of creativity.
Do you feel like this band is a symbol to some people?
It's a very strong beacon of hope for anybody who's a performer or anything musical, performer, orchestrator, arranger, anything. It's a simple example of originality. We're always doing our thing, and whether our thing sounds like other things, we hope that is, because then our influences are being shown through it. But the title of the intergalactic, mind melding, funky jazz, soul reggae fusion, schizophrenic ska, whatever it is that we do, it's just all the six of us in the band bringing out all of our influences, which are there's 50 different genres we listen to. So there's 50 different genres we play, 50 different countries of music that we listen to. So we want to bring that in somehow, and that's both our grace, and it's a challenge, and it's also very innate. We're not trying to do it. We're just doing it.
Yeah, I mean, Mike and I met at a recording project when the bass player couldn't make it. Mike and I met, and then we started the band, and then one of the other founding members of the band was Johnny Downer, our guitar player, who passed away in 2009. And Johnny was part of this threesome that started this trio, and he was very important. And he's the one who introduced us to Jason, Jason now has been with us for 14 years.
Yeah, 14.
And then Jason introduced us to Nick, and Nick's been with us for 7 years. It's like a family of kind of things that happen. And that kind of started with Johnny had this kind of interesting and kind of unique ability to just befriend everybody. But also he befriended some very unique souls that kind of like would add to a situation. And so whenever, he would be totally happy playing Underneath the Bridge with a homeless guy. I mean, that was Johnny. But at the same time, when it came down to really getting into his heartfelt music, he had this particular, critical ear to be able to play with people that really turned him on and got the groove on. And so when Johnny passed away in 2009, Mike and I, we just wanted to continue the journey, and we continue to associate and attract just, other bros, I sort of say, or just parts of the family that just people are really spirited and into it. And I think the main thing that Free People's really is just people say, well, geez, how do you guys always have these amazing musicians that are playing with you? And I think from my perspective is that we try to leave the ego outside the door, and we try to allow everyone to express their own individual scenario, their own individual self.
A few of the songs tonight that we really got to bring out. This one song we did tonight, it's called 2 Feet. It's a song that I wrote. It was the first time that I got tossed out of a house by a woman, and it wasn't funny at the time. And then I didn't know why'd she kick me out. I thought we were having a good time. Anyway, I did fall back on my 2 feet, and that right, I deserved it. But then I
that was going to be my follow-up question.
Say it was.
In retrospect, if you felt
it was
like
the first time, correct?
I deserved it.
It was the first and only time.
But then, so that song though, it was very emotional for me. And the song has been developing. That happened 5 years ago. So that's another thing with Free Peoples is the songs take a long time to come out. We're just recording the song. And it really needed this amount of time to put together the personnel to actually execute it like we're going to do later. And also, I had arrangements that I had a basic idea of. Well, Nick Hasty on saxophone really helped things come out. And on other songs like we did earlier, Waiting, there's just parts that Jason, Thor, and Nick Hasty on trombone and sax, they wrote the part. I didn't write the part, they wrote the part. So they're not, again, what Tim said, just to reinforce what Tim said, there's no ego in it. And if somebody comes up with something that is, makes up the sum of the parts that's better than, or that doesn't exist in the first place and then exists and makes the song just that much greater, makes it keep going. It's like a song that never, it's where its composition is always kind of stretching and it's never really finished. It's an ongoing composition. It's like a Bach piece, you know, like Bach did that. He made songs that people were able to still interpret and do their own way. And so that's like such a great accolade of ours. You know, we have ongoing songs, ongoing compositions. Would you guys agree with me on that? Yeah. Like,
I think that's one of the things that people appreciate about what we do is that, I mean, there's songs that I've been in the band 14 years, and there's songs that you guys wrote at the very beginning. So some of these songs are like, 18, 19 years old, but every time we play them, there's something slightly different and differently magical about them, which is why it's still incredibly interesting after all this time.
Yeah, new folks that come and play with us sometime, or just to sit in and we'll say, hey, well, what's the set list? And I'm like, well.
Ask Sam.
Yeah, ask Sam. Because, I've just never been a set list kind of guy. We'll write one and we never follow it, so then finally we just stop writing them. Because, there's not a set list to make love. There's not a set list to have a conversation when you're having a really great conversation with somebody. We may be checking our notes in an interview, but really, why have a set list? Everyone wants a set list. Like, hey, what was the set list? That was a great set. I'm like, I don't know. Record it and write it down because it's going to be different. And if we have it written down, we've never, ever followed it. And so that's just part of this whole, the improvisational
playing the crowd, man.
part.
We're playing the crowd,
A song you play tonight is Waiting. Mike D, you wrote that song.
Yes.
With some help from on the melody part.
Yes.
Could you tell us a little bit about that song? What of yourself you put into that song?
It was a hiatus that I actually took from Free Peoples from 2007 to 2009. I was going through a major life change. I was dating a woman that didn't kick me out of the house. I decided to leave on my own volition, and I needed a change in my life. I had written half a dozen songs in my life, and really good songs, and the rest of them were all kind of not worth sticking around for. And so I was more of just a backup guy with the band, and completely and totally fine with that. But I needed a change in my life, and I broke up with this woman, and I got a job opportunity to move overseas. I was in Ibiza, Spain from 2007 to 2009, and I was working as a musician in a studio, and I was also a private chef there. And it was just a basic love story that ended up on the wrong end. And it was somebody that I always would come and visit me there, and I became fonder and fonder. But I realized that she was just coming to hang out with me there. And so I was always waiting for her to make a decision to come back and kind of stick with it. But I realized that that's the way life is. And I couldn't live my life without her. And I saw so much in her, but yet I still was there in that country doing something else. So she empowered me to be myself there. And that was really basically where the song came from. And it was a mantra. It was like this, just like me telling myself, this is why I'm here, this is why I'm here. And it was the first song that I wrote there. And it was probably the best song that I wrote there. And it was probably one of the best songs that I've ever written for myself, because it just told the story of me, just taking care of myself and what interests me the most, and that's creativity.
You mentioned the TED Talk, which inspired the potential title track for the new album. On your second CD, your grandfather struggled with Alzheimer's, and you did a song about that. What does that song explore there? Because there's a theme here where you seem to be fascinated by the workings of the neuroscience and how the human brain works.
Right. So my grandfather, he had kind of a late onset Alzheimer's, and my mom and dad were getting kind of worn out taking care of him, and one summer I was home. I said, I got grandpa this summer. Any phone call after 10, or if I happen to be home after 2 is my phone call. And I'd get these phone calls, sure enough, 12, 1, 2 in the morning, and it would be grandma. Grandpa's trying to get out, And so I'd just get my skateboard or my bike, and I'd cruise over to 2-3 blocks over to Grandpa's house, and sure enough, Grandpa's trying to get out the front door. Grandma's got him by the belt, and he's like, Timbo, saddle up the horses, we got to get out of here. This woman's trying to get me in bed with her, And of course, his grandma, but he remembers her when she was 21 and hot, and now she's a big gal, and she's been taking care of him, and he has no idea who this lady is, and he's just bummed out that this lady wants him. And so we'd go walking around the neighborhood, and we'd come back, and we'd saddle up the horses to get back. And the whole kind of Western theme about it was that he spent hours reading Zane Grey books. And then when he got burned out on those, which he really never did, he read those over and over. He would read Louis L'Amour books. He had stacks of these books, and he'd always go back to the Zane Grey. And I think that he had really, as he started to lose his mind, he became the cowboy. And so that just said something to me when I wrote that song.
Is that experience with him why you have a fascination with aging and growing up? Because that's something you mentioned to me as well, or does it extend beyond the experience with your grandfather?
Well, I just had always been, when I was a senior in high school, I was going to be an architect. And there was the start of AP classes, and one of my instructors says, hey, we're going to have anatomy. We're going to have this anatomy physiology class for seniors. Would you be into it? And I said, sure. Why he picked me, I don't know. But there was 19 of us, and I got the highest grade in the class. And it was like, whatever, anatomy, physiology. And I just kind of blew the class away. And he says, Tim, you ought to think about doing something like, I don't know if architecture is your realm. Anyway, so that just kind of prompted me to kind of go into that whole world of anatomy and physiology and stuff. And I ended up becoming a physical therapist because of that. And so, and I had a bunch of, it's interesting because I started playing guitar when I went to Long Beach State, and I was hanging out with this guy. I met this doctor at UC Irvine, and he said, well, what's your passion? I was jamming on the guitar on the beach in Laguna Beach, and he goes, oh man, I play guitar. And then he'd say, oh, I used to play guitar. And I'm like, why did you stop? Why is playing guitar a used to be thing? That's like non-acceptable. And so we started asking stuff. He goes, well, what do you do? And I said, well, I'm trying to figure out what I'm going to do. And he said, well, don't be a doctor because you'll never be able to be in a band. After we started talking, because you try to pick something that you could do that you could maybe, supplement your income and still play music. And so physical therapy ended up kind of doing that for me. And I was able to continue to play bands all through college and afterwards, and I just haven't stopped.
One thing I think we've done really well tonight is get the two founding members' take on what the band has meant to them and what they've tried to do with it. I'd be really interested as we kind of wind down for the other four, just what this project's meant to you personally. You don't have to share if it's hard. It's a hard thing to come to. But I feel like just in the way that you guys have brought each other along, I feel like that being in this band has been significant creatively and just musically, and probably taking you to places that you wouldn't have gone to otherwise. So if you have anything to say about what the being in this band, the legacy of this band, what these people have meant to you, this would be a good time to share it.
For myself, it's not hyperbole to say that being in this band changed my life in several ways. When I first met Johnny, I was like, when I moved to this area and met Johnny, it was like a pretty difficult time in my life. And having that experience of like knowing him first as a friend, that was like a huge emotional connection for me, and that turned into this musical connection. And like I was actually, when we're sitting here reflecting on, I can't believe it's been like 14 years that I've known at least Tim and Mike D, and like so I've gotten so much out of being a partner with them. There's been times where I've, as has happened with several of us, like I've gone away, come back, but there's always been this deep connection that I've never really felt with any other musical project before. And like I said, on a personal level, it's really become like my family. And I mean, apart from maybe like the first 6 or 9 months where I wasn't really sure if Mike D liked having a trombone player in the band, but it just kind of seemed to work. And I mean, you guys have really given me the opportunity to grow in a really profound way as a musician. I appreciate that.
So I just want to say I appreciate you guys kind of giving us a glimpse into the other aspects of this project, because the music is great and people will see that the music is great later on. But there's a lot more going on here. So thank you for being so generous and kind of pulling the curtain back a little bit on this one.
Thanks for having us. Really, we're honored to be here. Really. Yeah.
And, it's a band with so much history, so I'm glad that we get to document not only the music, but also the people behind it. And now, after a brief musical interlude, the music of Free Peoples, what we've been talking about all night, is going to begin.
Stick around and give it a listen.
And thanks again for joining us,
Thanks for
everybody.
Thank you guys.
Thanks a lot.
together without each other is not the way it should be. Now's the time to release our love and let our hearts be free. You said you'll come back, and I'm waiting, I'm waiting, I'm waiting for you. You'll never come back, no more waiting, no waiting, no waiting. There's no way I can live my life without you. You and me see the world together through and through. There's no way I can live my life without you. You and me. just can't hide. Trouble in my soul, always taking its toll. Youth gone by, stars sweeping across the sky, going somewhere else, knowing it's all fair. It's all making sense. Life is so intense. Past and future stays. We're all just memories, making light in the dark, far from over. Youth gone by, stars sweeping across the sky, going somewhere else, knowing it's all fair. La la la, la 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 la, la la la. Homeward we must roam. Our lives certainly have grown into something grand, one who will take us there. For what's right is right, for what's right is right. You've gone by, stars sweeping across the sky, going somewhere else, knowing it's all fair. Gone, gone, gone from here, gone without a trace. Don't feel lost, lost, something's found. Same to fade on the same old ground. Do what they wanna do, say what they wanna say. There'll come a time when we share each other's minds. Gone, gone, gone from here, gone without a trace. Don't feel lost, lost, something's found. Same new fate on the same old ground. We'll do what we wanna do, we'll say what we wanna say. Time is now, we can show each other how not to be gone, gone, gone from here, gone without a trace. Don't feel lost, lost, something's found. Same new way on the same old ground. pin it down to the roach. Wondering why my right brain cries when my left is too busy trying to figure out why. Crawling out of this deep dark hole where there's always been lights and no clear road. Wonder why my right brain sighs when my left is too active. With numbers and signs of mine. Reach to the sky. Oh my, oh my. Fly away. Step on out, step on out, step aside, step aside. Feel the pain, enjoy the ride. Hold it in and push it out. It's just a choice that wants to come out. Hold it in and push it out. It's just a choice that we're all about. Hold it in and push it out. It's just a choice that we're all about. Oh my. Reach to the sky. Oh my, oh my. Grab the wings to fly away. Oh my, oh my. Grab the wings to fly away. Oh my, oh my. Grab the wings to fly away. You may be right or wrong. The choice is yours. It's only your song. Just close your eyes. Grab them wings to fly.